I have a confession to make, and I am aware that it might be controversial, so please be civil in the comments. I personally find The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt to be a rather good game. Yeah, I know, get your pitchforks ready. That terrible joke aside, The Witcher 3 has a lauded and intense following of millions of fans over the years. At some point you could have sworn it was a half-god which people prayed to when pre-ordering games, and yeah, they got a point. The game is amazing. There's so many things to attribute that quality to, especially the narrative and presentation. CD Projekt Red has made a story in which they take the player seriously. It's difficult to explain without going into spoilers territory. The world was dealt a tough hand, and that is felt everywhere. The complex moral issues that arise from that situation are presented to the player maturely, and they're forced to take tough decisions that usually don't have a right answer. The characters are just as complex as the world, and they have interesting relationships with a focus on a relationship between a father and a daughter. The pacing is also something to be complimented. They don't try to explain everything going on to the player as quickly as possible, but they take their time. You just find things out when Geralt does. The part that defines the unique aspect of this experience for me is also something that I don't really want to spoil, so please skip ahead to the timestamp that I'll hopefully include if you haven't played the Novigrad portion of the game. I'm talking about the introduction to Priscilla. She is a side character and love interest to Dandelion who introduces herself by simply singing a song. Not for 30 seconds, not in the background, but it's the sole focus of the scene. Her sorrowful lute always grabs me by the hand and implores me to stop and listen for a moment. Then her voice guides me along images of a love story. My mind can't completely absorb the narrative, but I relish the mental images her words create. And not just the player, but the characters in the room also listen.
These scars long have yearned for your tender caress, to bind our fortunes, damn what the stars are.
It's a quiet moment, where it's not about Ciri, Geralt or Yennefer. It's just about the world itself. A moment to not really do anything, but simply exist in a fictional world with seemingly real people. Most other AAA studios would have been terrified of boring the player like this, but not CDPR. Furthermore, the presentation is absolutely amazing. The music has such a unique sound that if I hear something like it, I immediately associate it with The Witcher. And something about the way the models and textures look is just timeless. While some games that came out in the same year might technically look more detailed, this one almost looks like it's painted. The blowing wind through the leaves, the dirty but impressive buildings in Novigrad, the varied people and the dusty roads and streets. As I'm writing this, I can picture all of it. It's not surprising then that many people, including myself, were eagerly looking forward to the next game these developers would make, which happened to be
Cyberpunk 2077.
People got hyped for Cyberpunk. Naturally, for developers who made one of the most praised games in recent history, especially since the marketing promised to change so much about the way they make their open world games. It would be like a GTA style open world game with an emphasis on Fallout like choices matter role playing, and it got delayed. And delayed. And delayed. Some more after that. Which I'm generally for. Definitely if the alternative is completely overworking your employees. So, as happens when gamers are hyped and a game comes out, nobody is disappointed. People went out, played the game, loving all of it and being happy and satisfied. That would have been nice. For anyone who managed to miss what happened when Cyberpunk 2077 came out, it was unequivocally unfinished. I played it on release and it was apparent within the first few minutes that there was a lot of work left to be done. People were smoking without cigarettes, animations in cutscenes didn't play properly, many quests were broken, and there was so much more than I could possibly mention in this video. There are many videos displaying the bugs on YouTube if you're interested. On a side note, I really don't understand why publishers keep releasing games before they're finished. From a monetary perspective, the release now fix later mindset must cost millions of dollars. Immediately after release, CDPR stock went down significantly. Many people refunded their purchase. Anyone waiting for the first reviews to decide to buy the game were without a doubt very turned off to getting it. If people want to buy it now, that is actually finished, you can already get it on sale for 50% of the original price. And the reputation of the company suffers, making people more hesitant to pre-order their products in the future. While if companies just wait to finish a game, they spend just as much money as they otherwise would, but they just get more back. Anyway, the game came out broken, which is why people immediately started lambasting it as the biggest failure ever, and it was pretty bad. A product that so many people spent a significant portion of their income on cannot be completely broken when they receive it. But not all criticism was based on the technological state of the game. After the first day, some players started to criticize Cyberpunk on other aspects of the experience. Most notably the open world and general gameplay loop, because there are many things to still be critical about. For example, the open world combat encounters are practically meaningless apart from some text you can find there sometimes. The game feel is weird and the acceleration of the player feels slippery and strange. The world was not at all made to be messed around with. NPCs work best if you didn't think about them too much and just saw them as the mindless filler they were. Their reactions to your actions were laughable, and the police, if provoked, would teleport all over the place. Thing is, every problem I just mentioned goes just as well for The Witcher 3. The police sucks, but I never tried to get in a fight with them. The biggest problem was that people thought they should. I'm not saying that was their fault. The marketing and setup of the game just makes it a really obvious way of going about it. Maybe V shouldn't have been a criminal. Maybe they should have had the role of a private detective or something. That way you're in the role of somebody already actively trying to improve Night City. Someone who's a part of the world. Not the role of a GTA character, but with feelings other than anger. If you play Cyberpunk like The Witcher but sci-fi, the unique story presentation works just as well for Cyberpunk as it did for The Witcher. This is where we arrive at the biggest mistake I believe CDPR made with Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is not honest about what it is. The marketing pretended it was a full-on role-playing game with complex, dynamic interactions with the story. You could even create your own character this time. Choose your backstory, looks, stats and genitals. Which made me want to play Fallout in a sci-fi city. While the setup of a criminal in the city sounds so much like GTA that every player wants to get into over-the-top car chases with the police. Cyberpunk is not GTA, nor Fallout New Vegas. It's an interactive story with a pre-existing main character and overarching plot, narrative and themes. While the city isn't your plaything, but a brutal, believable place for your character to live in. Cyberpunk's biggest problem is that nobody knew what they were getting into when they first started playing. Because the thing Cyberpunk does best, it does amazingly. It's a gritty, believable, detailed, disgusting and gorgeous city. A city with so much story just in its design, from slums to skyscrapers. One thing from the marketing is very true. Walking around the streets of Night City is breathtaking. And the narrative in this cynical world is satirical, depressing and complicated. But also quite melancholic. When seen through the lens of The Witcher 3 in a futuristic city, Cyberpunk becomes special. I'm about to spoil some important plot points, so skip ahead if you must. Most of all, Cyberpunk is about death. About the people who face it themselves, about the people who stay behind, and about a panicked race to avoid it, or make an impact before it closes in.
Everybody else thought he was a goofball with a rough-hewn face and an edge. But they're wrong.
Death isn't just a plot point or used to advance the gameplay. It's like in real life. It has no meaning, it is inevitable, and all you can do is grieve. Never have I felt a death in a game or movie the way that I did Jackie's. Not when he dies next to me in the car, but in the aftermath. Talking to the people who loved him, looking through his stuff and hearing stories about him. just seeing how much it sucks that he is not a part of this world anymore. It felt like how actual funerals do.
Yeah, I got only good memories of him. Rest easy up there, brother.
And that is remarkable. And even though so many games came out much more polished than Cyberpunk, I doubt many of them will be able to get to the same emotional heights as this one did. Cyberpunk is definitely not perfect. All my earlier complaints still stand, and it also makes some mistakes to make sure that
it is a little something for everyone,
which just takes away from its focus, in my opinion. The marketing pretended to be something new, something bold and revolutionary, something nobody had ever played before. It isn't. What it is the best game of last generation, but in a city this time, with lights, lots of them. I want to conclude with asking you how this could happen, because I'm still confused about how this keeps happening. It's hard to find out exactly what went wrong. Maybe there's pressure from investors to publish soon. It could very well be that the marketing department was tasked with generating excitement and went overboard with it. I remember seeing criticism about the way they structured development, which is something they have recently announced to address. What exactly happened, I don't know. I don't think it matters much to us anyway. The only thing you and I can do is to stop pre-ordering. Wait until games are finished to buy them. Otherwise, we are forced to repeat these stories over and over again. Alright, I started working on this video pretty much right when I finished the last one, which was half a year ago. And I already have a bunch of ideas for the next videos, so if you want to see that, you know what to do. And if you do stick around, please be patient.